Welcome to Emerging Trends in Education Around the World. I'm Dr. Jeannette Vos. I am a holistic teacher trainer and corporate trainer, also a coach for parents, educators, and the workplace. My specialty is self-learning for all ages. Take a look at this picture. If I were with you right now, I would be asking, have you experienced this? I have. Teacher in front of the room, students listening, just sitting there being bored, and one child having to stand up and, yes, either recite or give the right answer. This was traditional schooling, and perhaps it is traditional schooling for you as well, still today. In fact, some of the schools around the world that I have visited were just like this, even though it's the 21st century. So let's take a look at what can be instead of what was past. Our world has changed. We are living in a revolution. Yes, it's a digital revolution, and it's changing the way we communicate, think, and prosper. It's time to raise our vision in the world where almost anything is possible. There's some myths of learning that we need to cope with here. Teaching equals learning. Most of the time, it's a myth. New technology always improves learning, not necessarily so. Knowledge and skills are distinct, again, not necessarily so. Cognitive performance can be improved with brain training, not necessarily so, especially if you're not in a resourceful state of mind. So we ask ourselves the big question, why? Why do we need to change education? Do we really need to change it? I think most of us with this audience would say yes, because we are in a new century and it's a digital world. But how do we do it? Begin with what's possible. So I've included just a big picture here, a graph of what I'm covering in this very short session. There are three elements: schooling, curriculum and instruction, and attitudinal changes. So these trends are kind of intermixed, really. For example, project learning is not necessarily just for homeschools. It can be placed into vocational schools, or it can be part of self-study, or it could be part of the forest schools. So it's interwoven, and I just want you to be aware that this is a very flexible big picture of the emerging trends. So first, let's focus on the trends in schooling. And be aware that what is different here is that there's a focus on authentic life and innate meaningful learning. So there are collaboratives just propping up homeschools, unschools, microschools, holistic foundations are just chipping in, vocational and ecology schools, self-study online, learning tools, special projects like music, English teaching, forest schools, and even the Montessori schools are considered alternative in a way. And the Rudolf Steiners, they are wonderful schools that are more in keeping with 21st century learning. Schools need not be like prisons. That's what John Gatto said when he became Teacher of the Year in New York. He said, I don't mean education, just forced learning. 6 classes a day, 5 days a week, 9 months a year, for 12 years? Is this routine really necessary? If so, for what? What really are we doing in school? Are the children really prepared for the 21st century? Well, let's take a look at some of the trends in education, curriculum and instruction. Project learning based with STEM or STEAM. Now, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And then STEAM has the extra arts in it. Also, what I've noticed around the world in my travels, just looking at schools, virtues education, and leadership education. And yes, even encouraging students to become leaders. Eco learning, looking at what the planet is doing. We're not doing very well. Understanding by design, very helpful for teachers who want to start teaching in a new way. And it's also the title of a book, very good teaching book. Self-directed learning, very much where students are in charge of their own learning. Accelerated and integrative learning. That was the theme of my doctoral dissertation, and students got a 1 GPA growth just in 10 days. And then peace games. Marilyn Cooper is in charge of that. So what do the trends have in common? Self-learning. It's the future of education. So perhaps you're asking, what is self-learning? It really comes from our innate ability. Everyone really has it down deep, except most of us have it squelched, and it's not our fault. It's basically because we were instructed to lose it in a way. We were not allowed to be a self-learner in most cases. Certainly I wasn't. But now, today, I feel I am a self-learner, and it's because my learning is becoming very personalized. And I'm using my innate ability instead of just doing what people say to do. And I'm more self-directed. I'm connected to the whole web of life. And yes, it's about responsibility for me and self-reliance as well. And if you're a teacher in a classroom and you want to have a self-learning classroom, you want it to be invitational. You want students to want to learn, not have to learn. So there's a difference. Here's a school in Mexico. I worked with this school, a wonderful place to learn. And another school here in Poland, Didasco's Kindergarten. Both I would consider self-learning schools. Self-learning is best together. Here's a workshop in Germany that I did, and here you are. The teachers are on the floor discussing things. It's not just about me teaching. The teachers are learning, and yes, learners can be teachers, both. There's a school from Hong Kong that I would consider a self-learning school. And you can see technology being used here, but the teacher is being more of a facilitator and a coach to the students as they're working on their projects. Self-learning through microschools. This is basically where parents get together and they form their own little schools. Ada S. from Massachusetts is doing this now. And you can see that there's a little girl that's teaching a young boy. So students are becoming teachers, and teachers are becoming learners. We all learn from children. I certainly do. And there we have two little girls on top of a playhouse. And yes, what are they doing? Reading. Yes, this is their Unschool. Self-learning through projects, inquiry, research, comprehension, lots of collaboration is going on. And the teachers, again, are facilitators and coaches. And the students have voice and choice. They are allowed to take risks when they are trying to be a leader. It happens at High Tech High in San Diego, California. It's also happening in E2 School in China. You can see the students gardening there. It's very much engagement based. Some learning projects are out of school, and it doesn't mean you have to be in a certain building to have school. Here, Sherry Lee from Beijing Television, she got an award with them. She is teaching students how to do videotaping, and they love it. Self-learning through apps. A good example of this is Subconscious Training and English Skills program from Dr. Arkady Zilberman. He created it so that students could have a simultaneous speaking and reading and listening. And in that way, the conscious mind goes into this, just simmers down so that the subconscious can do most of the work. And we actually learn better with the subconscious than the conscious. We learn more. So, self-learning through holistic foundation support. Here, the CARES Foundation has chipped in so that students can do sports and recreation, artwork, and movie making. Self-learning through understanding by design. Well, here you start with the results and then you move backwards so that you work towards the results and see what that goal is, but then you move backwards to get to those results. And you can see a picture there. My students in my workshops are doing just that. They start with what they want and they work backwards toward it. And they have to figure out, how do I measure it? Yes, what's the evidence for that? And it's a wonderful self-learning experience by doing it. Self-learning through virtues education. A school in New Zealand that I visited was exemplary with this kind of education. And as you can see, there are lots of virtues here. So if you're a teacher that wants to have this kind of education, why not focus on one virtue each day? Today is going to be kindness day. And then at the end of the day, what did we do that was kind toward each other? So what I would do is throw a ball and let children just play with a very kind of an unconscious way of bringing up their own learning so that they're not stressed. Because a lot of times students feel tested. So when you play with learning and you throw a ball with something like this, then it becomes fun to make the virtue important. I also recommend that you do this with parents. Have the parents talk at the dinner table about the virtue of the day and just discuss it lightly. What did we all do today that was kind, or that was considerate, or how did we show empathy today, and so on. Virtues education is holistic. We have naming the virtues just by talking about it, not shaming students, mentoring, not censoring, reflecting on it when somebody acts up and not rejecting that person, and restitution rather than retribution. Self-learning through peace games. This is done by someone in Kenya, Africa. It's Alex Beckhold, and he was trained by Marilyn Cooper from California. And she has this program all over the world, and her book is coming out soon on peace games. You can see here that the children are learning social skills. They are learning to cooperate and collaborate. And yes, it's okay to play train and touch each other. And they learn to have esteem for themselves and for each other. Self-learning through play and gaming. Here you can see in my workshop in the UK at Cambridge University, there are both corporate people and teachers that are playing together with concepts. And yes, they're physically playing too with balloons. And so when we play, we are actually using more of our subconscious mind. And research supports, again, that the subconscious, we learn more with that than with the conscious. Also, at Mount Miguel High School in San Diego, California, students are allowed to play games with certain subject areas. They are doing this. Self-learning through nature. I was privileged in Munich, Germany, when I did workshops there, to take a trip around the city of Munich with a bike. And yes, it became a history lesson because I got to see exactly where Hitler made his speeches. So not that much of a good memory for me, being born in Holland, but the bike ride was wonderful. It became a history lesson. So we can learn in nature too. Self-learning through forest schools. School in New Zealand. It's a kindergarten where children spend 3 days every week in the bush. Here was an incident that I'll never forget. The little girl said to the eel, "Oh, Mr. Eel, I won't hurt you. I'll put you back in the water." She was feeding the eel. And just being there in nature with sticks and stones and ropes and having lunch outside, rain or shine, the children were in a learning and a self-learning mode. Self-learning through personal development. Jan Lever in the UK has a program called Jigsaw. And here you can see students have time out just to calm down after their play activity or whatever it is that they need to calm down from. And maybe there was a fight. Maybe, there was some sort of a problem, with discussing an issue. Who knows? It was time to calm down. So you can see them all in a big circle. And two other children are also having a calming experience, and you can see their eyes closed, just taking time out. It's so important to have time out. And sometimes for me, that means going for a swim or going for a walk, even a bike ride, whatever. People need time out. The two little children at the bottom there are talking to a Jiggy. When I was a classroom teacher, I had a toy cat called Felix, and the children would talk to the Felix cat, and they would tell the problems to this cat. And it's a great way to involve emotions and get out some of what's bothering us. So what are the positive trends in psychology? Well, we are moving from only teaching to a coaching and facilitation. We are moving away from authoritarian control. We are going towards self-direction and goal setting. And yes, freedom and responsibility. We are moving away from being ego-minded, like we have to be on top. We are the dominion in the world. Yes, so a lot of problems in our world stem from the fact that we think we have to have dominion. And really what we need to move toward is eco-learning and eco-mindedness and service-mindedness. And of course, we have so many power struggles in the world, but who's really getting the attention? People who have influence. And so teachers, if you want what we used to call classroom control, the better way to go about it is to look to see who are your influencers. Those are the children that will lead and that will dictate whether or not you have a classroom that is working together towards a goal. That's the difference. If you have power struggles, it just keeps on going. But if you work with influence, and yes, how you suggest things is a way of working with influence. But work with the influencers in your classroom, and then you will have more success. So some of the attitudinal trends in summary is that happiness is now the new rich. Yes, money doesn't necessarily make you happy. Inner peace is the new success. We all want that inner peace. Health is the new wealth. I now have the health that I never had as a child. My situation in my childhood was definitely poverty. So this is quite something that I actually have food on the table. And kindness is the new cool. So really having that virtue of kindness and compassion and empathy in your classroom, it's going to make a huge difference. So imagine a future where the learning is holistic, mental, physical, social, emotional, and spiritual too. And doing it together, like these two people here, from two countries, two genders, two different walks of life. They have different occupations, different skin colors, and yet they are working together. And this was at my workshop at Cambridge University. So self-learning ability can be regained by everyone. And I say regained, again, because most of us have it squelched. So just make an intention to bring it back in your life. Attributes like creativity, attributes like kindness, consideration, working together in a kind way, and just being there for yourself with self-care and caring for others. It begins with what Nelson Mandela said. It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it. So welcome to the Self-Learning Revolution to prepare your future. And these are the two books that are coming out very soon. The one on your right, Self-Learning Ability, is a very short ebook. And in fact, it has part of the presentation that I did for Pakistan not so long ago. And I thank all of the team that is bringing this conference together. And I have to say that little book is definitely thanking them as well. And the Self-Learning Success book will be a literal hardback or softback, I should say, but it will be print on demand. And here's my contact if you'd like to get in touch with me. Thank you for being part of my presentation. It's been an honor to be with you today.